Dear friends, please take your accent training book number 2. The video number is 96. What we are going to see is the tenses, the grammar in American English. The grammar is taught in nutshell. Totally around 100 sentences are there. So far, here in this board, we have 47 sentences. Once you are thorough with this 100 sentences, English grammar is in your hands. American accent is in your hands. American way of speaking is in your hands. See, we have seen in tenses different varieties of sentences. In positive, in negative, in present tense, past tense, in future, ordinary continuous, present perfect continuous, modals. Now you see here we have taken a sentence. Indians speak English. Indians speak English. Indians is a subject. English is the object. Indians is a noun. English is the noun once again. So we are adding a verb. Indians speak English, spoke English, will speak English. Now we have come here to modal negative. Cannot speak. Future modal negative. Cannot speak. Indians cannot speak English. How do you pronounce? Indians can. Indians can. Indians can speak English. Can speak English. Can. You should say can. You don't say cannot, you say can. I can. Indians can speak English. Must not speak. It is a future modal verb. Indians must not speak English. So, how do you say? Mustn't. You don't say must not, you say mustn't. Indians mustn't speak English. Indians mustn't speak English. Mustn't speak English. So, cannot changes into can. Must not changes into mustn't. Now coming here, may not speak English. Future, present, modal negatives. Indians may not speak English changes into Indians may not, mayn't speak English. Mayn't speak English. Don't have to speak. Don't have to speak changes into, see, future infinite negative is called do not have to speak. It changes into Indians do not have to speak in English. So it is not a compulsion. So how do you say? Indians don't have to speak. Indians don't have to speak in English. Indians don't have to speak in English. So don't have changes into don't have to. Don't have to speak English. Ought not to speak English. It is future modal infinite negative. Future modal infinite negative. Indians ought not to speak English changes into Indians ought not to speak in English. Indians ought not to speak in English. Next, should not speak. Past tense modal negative. Indians should not speak English change. How do you pronounce? Indians shouldn't. Indians shouldn't speak in English. Indians shouldn't speak in English. You have to stress on shouldn't speak in English. Now, could not speak, the 40th row, could not speak. Past tense modal negative. Indians could not speak English changes into Indians couldn't speak in English. Indians couldn't speak in English. So, could not changes into couldn't speak. Could not speak changes into couldn't speak. Might not speak. Past tense modal negative. Indians might not speak English changes into Indians might not speak in English. Indians might not speak in English. So my dear friends, what is the, could everybody join together and say Indians can speak English.
Indians can speak English.
Must not speak English. Indians mustn't speak English.
Indians mustn't speak English.
May not speak. Indians may not speak English changes into Indians may not speak in English.
Indians may not speak English.
Do not have to speak English. Indians do not have to speak English. Indians don't have to speak in English.
Indians don't have to speak in English.
Ought not to speak. Indians ought not to speak English changes into Indians ought not to speak in English.
Indians ought not to speak in English.
Should not speak. Past tense modal negatives. Indians should not speak English. Indians shouldn't speak in English.
Indians shouldn't speak in English.
Could not speak. Past tense modal negative. Indians could not speak English. Indians couldn't speak English.
Indians couldn't speak English.
Might not speak. Past tense modal negative. Indians might not speak English. Indians might not speak English.
Indians might not speak
So hope you are able to understand the way of pronunciation. Cannot is can't, must not is mustn't, may not is mayn't, do not have is don't have, ought not to means ought not to, should not is shouldn't, could not is couldn't, might not is mightn't. Now coming here, should have spoken. So past tense modal perfect, should. Modal verb is added with have plus past participle, should have. So in the past you should have done it, I should have studied, I should have gone, I should have spoken. So it's the past wish, past wish which you have not done. So Indians should have spoken in English changes into Indians should have spoken in English, Indians should have spoken in English. Now coming here, could have spoken, past tense modal perfect, Indians could have spoken in English changes into Indians could have spoken in English, Indians could have spoken in English. So could have spoken in English, might have spoken, past tense modal verb perfect, Indians might have spoken in English, Indians might have spoken in English. So Indians might have spoken in English. So Indians is changes into Indians. Indians, you don't say Indians, you say Indians. Should not have spoken. See, past tense modal verb perfect negative, should not have spoken. In the past you have done something and you are regretting and telling I should not have. I should not have gone to Delhi. I should not have joined in this college. So in the past tense you are regretting and saying, then you are using this phrase, this tense, should not have spoken. Past tense modal verb perfect negative. Indians shouldn't have spoken in English. Indians shouldn't have spoken in English. Indians, you don't say Indians, you say Indians shouldn't have spoken in English. Could not have spoken. Past tense modal verb perfect negative. See, I am saying I could not have become a teacher without my father's help. So couldn't have means it is not possible for me to have be like this now. So Indians couldn't have spoken in English. Indians couldn't have spoken in English. Indians couldn't have spoken in English. Might not have spoken, past tense modal verb perfect negative. Indians might not have spoken in English. Indians might not have spoken in English. Indians might not have spoken in English. Say everybody together. Should have spoken, Indian should have spoken in English changes into Indian should have spoken in English. Could have spoken. Indians could have spoken in English. Might have spoken. Indians might have spoken in English. Should not have spoken. Indians shouldn't have spoken in English. Could not have spoken. Indians couldn't have spoken in English. Might not have spoken. Indians might not have spoken in English. Hope you are able to understand. See, could have, should have, could not have, shouldn't have, must not have, mustn't have. So all these things are in your day-to-day conversation which you use daily. This you have to be thorough with. Now I request two of them to come forward and say, please come. Yes. Yes. Start.
Indians can speak in English.
Indians can speak in English. Can. You say that you just turn this side, express can.
Can.
Indians can.
Indians can speak in English.
Indians must in English.
Must. Indians mustn't speak. Mustn't.
Indians mustn't
Keep
speak
the mic
English.
closer to you. Be louder. Indians mustn't speak in English.
Indians mustn't speak in English.
Indians may not speak in English.
Indians may not speak in English. Be louder. Yes, next.
Indians done out.
Doesn't have.
Indians
Do
done
not
out.
have.
Indians
don't
done
have
out.
to.
Indians done out to speak in English.
Indians don't have to speak in English. Open your mouth. Yes.
Indians ought not to speak in English.
Indians ought not to speak in English. Yes,
Indians shouldn't speak in English.
Very good.
Indians couldn't speak in English.
Yes.
Indians might not speak in English.
Indians might not
Not
speak in English. Yes, over here, this side. Yes, come closer. Text the sentence and speak.
Indians should have Indians should have spoken in English.
Indians could have spoken in English.
Indians might have spoken in English.
Indians shouldn't have spoken in English.
Indians couldn't have spoken in English.
Indians might not have spoken in English.
Very good. ஸோ நண்பர்களே, உங்களுடைய அமெரிக்கன் ஆக்சன்ட் ட்ரைனிங் புக் நம்பர் 2 எடுத்துக்கொள்ளுங்கள். வீடியோ 96 வந்திருக்கிறோம். ரொம்ப முக்கியமான தலைப்பு, அமெரிக்க இலக்கணம் ஒரு 100 வாக்கியத்தில் அடங்கி விடுகிறது. ஒரு 2 நாள் அமெரிக்க இலக்கணத்தை முழுமையாக கற்றுக்கொள்ளலாம். ஆனால் டென்சஸை அறிந்து கொள்ள வேண்டும். ப்ரெசன்ட் டென்ஸ், பாஸ்ட் டென்ஸ், ஃபியூச்சர் 3 காலங்கள். அதில் ப்ரெசன்ட் டென்ஸில் 4 பிரிவு, பாஸ்ட் டென்ஸில் 4 பிரிவு, ஃபியூச்சரில் 4 பிரிவு. கேன், மே, ஷேல், ஷுட்டு, வுட்டு அது யூஸ் பண்ணணும். ஷுட் ஹேவ், குட் ஹேவ், வுட் ஹேவ், மஸ்ட் ஹேவ் அது பாசிட்டிவ், நெகட்டிவ். ஸோ 33 சென்டென்சஸ் பார்த்துருக்கிறோம். இப்போ 34வது சென்டென்ஸ். cannot speak முடியல. ஃபியூச்சர், மாடல், நெகட்டிவ். இந்தியன்ஸ் cannot speak இங்கிலீஷ். இந்தியர்களுக்கு ஆங்கிலம் பேச முடியாது. cannot எப்படி சொல்லுவீங்க? can't. அவ்வளோதான். இந்தியன்ஸ் can't speak இங்கிலீஷ். can. இந்தியன்ஸ் கேன் ஸ்பீக் இங்கிலீஷுக்கும் கேனுங்கிறதுக்கு கொஞ்சம் அழுத்தம் கொடுக்கணும். கேனுங்கிறது கெனாட்னு அர்த்தம், கொஞ்சம் இழுத்து சொல்லணும். கேனுங்கிறது முடியும். இந்தியன்ஸ் கேன் ஸ்பீக் இங்கிலீஷ் என்று சொல்ல வேண்டும். மஸ்ட் நாட் ஸ்பீக் கண்டிப்பாக செய்யக்கூடாது. ஃபியூச்சர், மாடல், நெகட்டிவ்ஸ். இந்தியன்ஸ் மஸ்ட் நாட் ஸ்பீக் இங்கிலீஷ். இந்தியர்கள் இங்கிலீஷ் கண்டிப்பாக பேசக்கூடாது. இந்தியன்ஸ் மஸ்ன் ஸ்பீக் இன் இங்கிலீஷ். மஸ்ட் நாட்ங்கிறது மஸ்ன் ஸ்பீக் இன் இங்கிலீஷ் வருது. மே நாட் ஸ்பீக் இங்கிலீஷ். ஃபியூச்சர், ப்ரெசன்ட், மாடல், நெகட்டிவ். இந்தியன்ஸ் மே நாட் ஸ்பீக் இங்கிலீஷ்ங்கிறது. இந்தியன்ஸ் மே நாட் ஸ்பீக் இன் இங்கிலீஷ். மே நாட்ங்கிறது மென்ட் ஸ்பீக் இங்கிலீஷ். டு நாட் ஹேவ் டு ஸ்பீக் இங்கிலீஷ். பேச தேவையில்லை. ஃபியூச்சர், இன்ஃபினிட், நெகட்டிவ். இந்தியன்ஸ் டு நாட் ஹேவ் டு ஸ்பீக் இன் இங்கிலீஷ்ங்கிறது. இந்தியன்ஸ் don't have to do not have toங்கிறது don't have to speak in English. ought not to speak English னா பேச அவசியம் இல்லை, அவர்கள் சமுதாய கடமை அல்ல. Indians ought not to speak in Englishங்கிறது Indians ought not to speak in English. Indians ought not to speak in English என்று வருகிறது. should not speak பேசக்கூடாது. past tense, modal, negatives. Indians should not speak Englishங்கிறது. Indians shouldn't speak in English. should notங்கிறது shouldn't. Indians shouldn't speak in English. shouldn't. அதே மாதிரி could not speakங்கிறது past tense, modal, negative. Indians could not speak Englishங்கிறது Indians couldn't speak in English. Indians couldn't speak English. could not speak Englishங்கிறது couldn't speak English என்று வருகிறது. might not speak. Indians might not speak Englishங்கிறது Indians might not speak in English. might not speak in English. So everybody say together, Indians can speak in English. Indians mustn't speak in English. Indians may not speak in English. Indians do not have to speak in English. Indians don't have to speak in English. Indians are not to speak in English. Indians shouldn't speak in English. Indians couldn't speak in English. Indians might not speak in English. should have spoken. should have spoken எங்க யூஸ் பண்றோம்? have கூட past participle எங்க சார் யூஸ் பண்றோம் சொல்லுங்க? ஒன்று செய்திருக்கணும். பாஸ்ட் டென்ஸ்ல ஒன்று செய்திருக்கணும். நீங்க என்ன சொல்றீங்க? நான் அமெரிக்கா போயிருக்கணும். எப்படி சொல்லுவீங்க? I should have gone to America. நடக்காத ஒன்றை நடப்பது போல பாஸ்ட் டென்ஸ்ல நடக்கவில்லை, நடந்திருக்கணும் சொல்லும் பொழுது should have கூட past participle சொல்றீங்க. should have spoken. past modal perfect. Indians should have spoken in English. Indians should have spoken in English. Indians should have spoken in English. அவர்கள் பேசி இருந்திருக்க வேண்டும். could have spoken பேசி இருந்திருக்க முடியும். I could have purchased a car last year. நான் போன வருஷம் என்னால் வாங்கி இருந்திருக்க முடியும். So could have spokenங்கிறது past tense, modal perfect. Indians could have spoken in English. அப்ப இந்தியர்கள் ஆங்கிலம் பேசி இருந்திருக்க முடியும். Indians could have spoken in English. Indians could have spoken in English. இந்தியர்கள் பேசி இருந்திருக்க முடியும். might have spoken பேசி இருந்திருக்கலாம். நாம் சொல்லாமல்ல I might have studied MBBS படித்திருக்கலாம். So past tense, modal, verb perfect. Indians might have spoken in English. Indians might have spoken in English. இந்தியர்கள் ஆங்கிலத்தில் பேசி இருந்திருக்கலாம். shouldn't have spoken பேசி இருந்திருக்க கூடாது, பேசக்கூடாது. shouldn't have பேசி இருந்திருக்க கூடாது. past tense, modal, verb, perfect, negative. Indians should not have spoken in English. Indians shouldn't have spoken in English. இந்தியர்கள் ஆங்கிலத்திலே பேசி இருந்திருக்க கூடாது. shouldn't have spoken in English. could not have spoken, பேசி இருக்க முடியவில்லை. past tense, modal, verb, perfect, negative. Indians could not have spoken in English. Indians couldn't have spoken in English. Indians couldn't have spoken in English. இந்தியர்களால் ஆங்கிலத்தில் பேசி இருந்திருக்க முடியாது. might not have spoken, past tense, modal, verb, perfect, negative. Indians might not have spoken in English. Indians might not have spoken in English. இந்தியர்கள் ஆங்கிலத்திலே பேசாமல் இருந்திருக்கலாம். So everybody say together, Indians should have spoken in English. Indians could have spoken in English. Indians might have spoken in English. Indians should have spoken in English. Indians couldn't have spoken in English. Indians might not have spoken in English. So நண்பர்களே, நம்ம எத்தனை சென்டென்ஸ் வந்திருக்கோம்? 47 சென்டென்சஸ். இந்த 47 சென்டென்சஸை எப்படி யூஸ் பண்ணோம்? இந்த இந்தியன்ஸும் இங்கிலீஷும் எடுத்துக்குங்க, வேற ஏதாவது போட்டுக்குங்க. ஐ கேன் பை எ கார்னு சொல்லி சென்டென்ஸ் ஃபார்மேஷன் பண்ணுங்க. ஐ கேனாட் பை எ கார், ஐ குட் ஹேவ் பாட் எ கார், ஐ ஷுட் ஹேவ் பாட் எ கார், ஐ மைட் நாட் ஹேவ் பாட் எ கார். ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி சென்டென்சஸ் தான் மார்னிங் டு நைட் நீங்கள் பேசி கொண்டிருக்கிறீர்கள். ஸோ இனி வரக்கூடிய வீடியோக்களிலே மொத்தம் 47 பார்த்துருக்கீங்க. இனி வரக்கூடிய வீடியோக்களிலே மறுபடியும் டென்சஸ்னுடைய டீப் மீனிங்கில் போவோம். தேங்க்யூ வெரி மச்.